On to other stories now. Syrians are casting their ballots at polling stations in government-controlled areas across the nation. Interior Ministry says that around 15 million people are eligible to vote in the country's first presidential election in nearly 50 years. And here you can see President Bashar al-Assad and his wife visiting one of the polling stations in Damascus. He's widely expected to be re-elected. It's his first time he's running against other contenders. He inherited the post when his fathers died in 2000, and since then there has only been one referendum on his presidency. But despite the bloody civil conflict still raging in the country and the threat of a widespread boycott, many still want their voices to be heard, as Maria Finoshina found out.
Special coffee in this house today for a very special occasion. Rustam, born in Damascus, has lived in Italy during the 3 years of crisis in Syria. But a couple of days ago he returned home to cast his ballot in the country's first presidential elections in 50 years, hoping it may help him come back for good.
The Italian government prevents us from voting. It deprives us from our right. You can't vote at the embassy there. I believe Syria's future should be decided by the Syrian people, not by other countries' governments.
Western as well as some Arab countries have condemned the vote in Syria, saying that the country is at war.
This is hypocrisy. There is a war here, and then there is Ukraine. Why didn't Western countries call for a boycott of elections in Ukraine? This is a similar situation. Half of the country didn't vote, and there is a war.
This is Berza, a troubled district in northern Damascus where clashes between the Syrian army and militants still continue. This is one of the few areas in Syria where no polling stations will open due to security worries, and underlines the concerns of the critics of Tuesday's presidential vote.
Thousands of Syrians displaced by the war will indeed not be able to participate in the nationwide vote. But millions of others say they deserve this chance to make a choice.
This is our duty. We can't allow people from outside to decide for us. Our duty is to vote in order to protect our country.
Even if there are mortar bombs like terrorists promise us, we'll go and vote for Bashar al-Assad. This is our right.
This is democratic. We go and vote and choose the one who is able to protect our country.
But Hassan Abdulazim doesn't believe Tuesday's vote will change anything. He's the head of the main opposition group uniting 12 fractions in and outside Syria. And he says the crisis in the country is just one of many reasons to boycott the elections, but not the biggest.
A candidate should get the support of 30% of the People's Assembly, the body backed by authorities, which means there's no challenge, no change. It's a parliament again, and there can't be any opponents. This is why it's formal and illegitimate. This is why we reject it.
Ordinary people are joining experienced politicians and raising their voice, calling on others not to vote for who they consider is responsible for the bloody conflict. This anonymous internet group has low ratings, but the page is one of many of this kind. But these people think different, and they're not afraid to show their faces.
We like Bashar al-Assad, and we are going to re-elect him because he is the leader and we love him. We expect that everything will be settled under his leadership.
I will vote for Bashar al-Assad. Nobody can protect it as he protected it.
May God show them what wisdom is.
The Syrian crisis devastated the country and divided its society. The presidential election is just another point of dramatic disagreement between different people living in the same country. But those who are voting on Tuesday complain that by refusing to cross the ballots, their compatriots risk crossing out their common future. Maria Finoshina, Damascus, Syria.
Well, anti-Assad protests first began in the south of Syria in March 2011. By April, they were nationwide across the country, and the country has descended into civil war. Eastern parts fell into the rebels' hands. And a year later, opposition fighters were in control of most of Syria's northern and western parts. But the government was able to claw back some key cities in the process. And by 2013, the Assad army was overtaking the rebels in the west of the country. But by the time, radical jihadists were also pouring in. And today, with opposition forces failing to unite, Syria is being turned into a huge battleground of different al-Qaeda-backed groups fighting each other, as well as moderate rebels. And one international affairs analyst explained why the vote is so crucial.
This voting is very, very significant. This is the source of legitimacy. The heart of legitimacy is the consent of the people. And there is no alternative. The Syrian people have realized and more realize that what is at stake is the Syrian nation, is the unity of society. And that is why these elections, some people might like or not like Mr. Assad, but they feel that he is a symbol of uniting the country, considering that the opposition is so many oppositions, and the collective work of this opposition has led to the destruction of the country. Now, if the voting on the ground would prove that the overwhelming majority of the Syrians who can vote, who are able to vote, are in favor of Mr. Assad, this would definitely create a reality that the world would have to take into consideration.
And we are closely watching how the vote is progressing, bringing you the latest updates both on air and online at RT.com.